Hey, what's up, everyone? You're currently tuned into TBD on KCSB FM 91.9 in Santa Barbara and netradio.com Tijuana. Today, Lietoc and I are joined by American expatriate Mike Nigro, currently based in Sydney, Australia. Mike's the proprietor of Oxtail Recordings, a label specializing in ambient noise and broken songs, and has been releasing music under his own name dating back to 2012. His latest set of tunes, Low Light, is his first for Oxtail Recordings in 7 years, and it's out October 27th. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. Thanks so much. You did your homework on that little intro.
Well, yeah, dude, we're stoked to have you on. Yeah, Mike, what have you been up to? When did you end up in Sydney?
Did you say when or how?
Yeah, how and when?
We got to start there because we haven't talked to anyone from the Southern Hemisphere, I think, ever.
Yeah. I think sort of numerically there are fewer people, in the Southern Hemisphere overall, but yes, the odds. But so I've been in Sydney for 4.5, going on 5 years now. It was actually my day job. I was working for this company in New York and had an opportunity to take a gig with the same company over here.
Oh, sick, dude.
Took a shot on it and still here, with day job type stuff. But was doing, as we were talking about kind of before we hit record, grew up in Delaware and connected with all of the Tabs Out guys and started doing local stuff there with
sick
ambient experimental noise, and was in New York for 6 years, and then took all that stuff that I do with me when I came over here. So started the label in New York and started doing jams and noise and stuff with people, and still going.
That's sick. So how long again have you been in Sydney?
4.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And dude, how's it going over there? Like what do you do for fun and stuff? Is there like a cool music scene?
No, it's cool. It's a cool city. It's beautiful. The weather and the environment are just like world class.
Yeah.
And so that's just really nice. For fun, I do the same stuff I did back home, go to gigs, make music. It's tough to like kind of come to a new, like, I think what we're all interested in is like alternative underground sort of DIY type things. And coming to a new town, new city, it's hard to kind of figure out where the nooks and crannies are that you are trying to find, and I think also like, I came here at the beginning of 2019. So kind of like took the first year was like getting settled and getting the lay of the land and all this, and was like, okay, I think I'm really ready to like dig in to finding, the crew and like connecting and building, play gigs, get the label connected. And then it was like lockdowns. And so that I feel like put a bit of a, for me, as far as that all went, like made that a bit tougher and put a stop on that. So, even in the last year or two, as things have kind of loosened up, I kind of felt like, oh, now I'm just getting around to like really getting plugged in the way I wanted to. And I spent a lot of that time trying to connect and build relationships in ways that I could, but, it just couldn't be full throttle in the way that
you were intending.
It had been before, like in New York City, like plugged in, knew everyone.
Yeah.
You can't know everyone in New York City, but, knew a lot of people that I thought were really good people to know and great gigs and community and stuff. And I definitely felt the lack of that for a while, just kind of relocating and trying to get connected in a new place. But as it's been 4.5 years now, like I feel like made some good progress, met some great people. And with the label, I think I was kind of out of sync, like, especially when I came over here, all my connections are back in the US, and main audience in terms of people that want to buy the tapes or care about them, also in the US, and shipping was like, I had to figure out what to do about that so that it didn't cost $20-$30 for someone to buy a $10 tape, and got that kind of figured out. And now I think this year you're really starting to see actually releasing artists from here. Like I finally made the connections enough, and then had enough time for someone to say, oh, I've made a record and I want to work with you. And it's all kind of starting to show sort of publicly in the label catalog and stuff like that. So that's actually super satisfying for me to like start to, because then that puts me back in a position like where I can do release gigs here in town,
for sure.
And I'm not like, oh, you're doing a release gig in New York. That's really nice. I wish I could be there.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
It must also feel good to become a local label in a sense again as well. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. And I mean, I truly do feel like in the label, music, my personal life, my work, all of these things, I've still got like one foot here and one foot there.
Yeah.
And I really, I'm feeling more and more plugged in here and more local, but I still feel a little bit of like an identity crisis of where do I belong and where is, the place I feel most connected or whatever. But yeah, more increasingly so feeling like a local label and like, working with artists and things from here, knowing who the people that do gigs are, and being connected in that way that feels good and satisfying, and like is the reason I do this. And I think a lot of us do this is just to sort of be a part of a community and contribute something to it, and hopefully receive something from it that makes our lives better. And you got to kind of have that give and take to it. And it feels like that's coming online more and more, which is great.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. I was going to say, like, did people also like know like your label over there, like Oxtail and stuff, or like were people like sort of into the same, like, I guess forms of like media consumption, like Tabs Out, like, you know what I mean? Like, like how did the scene over there compared to like over here?
Was there people that were like, yeah, we're big on tiny mixtapes?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
tiny mixtapes contributors that have been down there. I know Room 40, if I'm correct, I think Room 40 is based down there. So you must have met with Words English at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Generally, really broadly speaking, not too much, because, you think about it like, just like I lived in, New York and Delaware, and my main connections were like on that East Coast of the United States. I mean, I had, I've got like a crew in Virginia and stuff like that, but like, Ohio, everyone knows someone in Ohio in the scene. And like, that was kind of the orbit, and like the world's big, man, and Sydney is way outside of that orbit. So as much as it felt great to be super plugged in and connected to that, and still does, it's like a few people that are like really heads and like kind of dig into things online. A few people recognize the name, but largely no.
Interesting. So like, who are like the big players over there that people like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm just like curious.
Coming in big tuxedos.
Well, I mean, you said it, Maddie. Lawrence and Room 40 are based up in Brisbane, actually. And, but I mean, he was just down, he did a big like festival last couple of weeks here in Sydney that like, I just saw him on Wednesday at the gig, and,
sick.
Yeah, he just is like unbelievable how much work and how much history he's put into all this stuff, and has really done a lot of work building
it's been
community around that in all of Australia. Not, he's based in Brisbane, but not just in Brisbane at all. And so also, obviously because
just like a side tangent there, but I've never reviewed any of the Room 40 tapes. I've never really gotten promo, but like he started in 2021. He's like, hey, I'm going to start doing cassettes. And then he built that relationship with Foxy Digitalis with Ben. he like Ben's like getting it out. Like Ben's done a lot of coverage for him and helped him get more kind of American stuff. And Ben's got an album on Room 40 coming out. Yeah. He has an album on Cranky from this year with Lossel. And I was like, wait, Lawrence is doing this? Like, okay. He's like,
and the amount of stuff that he puts out like 80 records a year or something on Room 40.
That's crazy.
Plus his own records on Room 40 and on Cranky and American Dreams. And like, he's a powerhouse. He's incredible. And that has like, I think a ripple effect, but it's definitely not only, I mean, another sort of big name, I think that's actually sometimes how I measure it is like, had I heard this name before I came to Sydney, like when I was living in the US, who was it from Australia that I knew about? Like their name and their reputation traveled that far. Yeah. It was basically Lawrence English and Lucas Abela. Do you know him? Yeah. Oh, he's sick. He plays glass.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah. He takes these like sheets of like scrap glass and like contact mics them and then runs them through effects in modular and like plays it like with his face and his mouth and like blows on it and like resonate. And like I think he's gone off of like I don't think he breaks the glass as much anymore, but like in the early days, he would like smash the glass with his face and stuff. Yeah. It's just like the gnarliest, sickest thing.
He's becoming a restrained noise musician.
Yeah, I think you can only break glass with your face for so long.
Yeah.
Before you mellow it out a little bit.
It's funny, though, to mention like this kind of sect of Australian experimental music, because one thing that does translate over more often, it's Australian punk music. Like I went to Memphis, Tennessee last year for Goner Fest and became very quickly like enamored with Research Reactor Corps and GT. And I think GT right now is like dead ass the best punk band you could get in the world because the songs have an incredible blistering amount of heart. There's an incredible like I was just listening to Stiff Little Fingers today and I was like, oh, it's the same romance that I got from GT. Now I get why I love both of these like so easily. And there's like in that universe the TV Repairman and like two other projects, but that to see like in America, Australians kind of like biggest export at least on like a DIY or underground scale, it's the punk. The punk sound, something there, it just translates so well to us.
Yeah, I think I don't really know. I couldn't exactly say why that is. It sort of feels like it's a little bit of how do I say, like one thing that Americans don't have that I've learned to love a lot is just like pub culture. And it's a weird kind of, it's not a bar, it's not a restaurant, it's not a venue, but it's all of those things also, you know, and it's a third or fourth or fifth kind of like place that's a combination of all of those things. And something about like the pub rock scene and the sort of revved up guitar music in first thing I thought of was like, that kind of feels like it comes out of the pub thing. And I don't really have like a coherent, like
I didn't know. I like genuinely get
that, but
I get this though.
Yeah, and yeah, I think Australians just kind of like they still. I mean, when I came here, I was like, oh, you guys still like music played with guitars, huh? Like, which is a bit of a razz, but like, at least coming out of like New York, and it was either like noise and synth stuff that I was into, or just like even the sort of bigger name artists, more commercial type things are all just some kind of electronic. Even like the biggest pop bands and even the bigger indie bands are some kind of amalgamation of things, like your power trio or your 4-person band with guitars, bass, drums.
Yeah.
Like it just was not in vogue. There's always people doing that, but it's like not the thing that's like generating hype and excitement and like feels like it's on the edge of something. In the United States, I haven't been there. I mean, I've been back, but I haven't lived there for a while. And I don't know if that's come back around, but at the time that I moved over here, it wasn't what was like getting people excited, and it still gets people excited over here, I think. And that's not a criticism, it's just different, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking it's like, at least on like an indie rock scale, that crossed over to college radio, where, you know, became kind of a tentpole for Americans. Like Courtney Barnett's first release is that's like a benchmark, huge thing. And there's like a pop rock element. There's a like Saturday night at the bar kind of energy that she had pulled there. Like, there's the Rolling Blackouts, all of their stuff. And I thought the first few releases they had were like the best you could have asked for of doing that jangle. Like a fourth of what Trouble in Mind puts out is some kind of variation of Australian jangle or Dunedin, the New Zealand kind of revival sound there.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff, like it felt like some kind of like element here, but it was always like, damn, those Australians just love their guitars. And it's always being baffled where we got Wednesday this year. That was like our kind of token regional American guitar rock sound, I would say, Thomas. I don't know if you have any other ones.
Wednesday rips. But I mean, I was going to say, I don't know, TV Repairman. I know you mentioned them. They're sick. They just played in LA.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I missed it too. I didn't realize, but my friend like posted a story of it and I was just like, dude, I would have went to that. That's sick. I don't know. Australian rock is cool. Are you going to like rock shows and stuff out there?
It's also funny you mentioned like Courtney Barnett and you know, a lot of people here it's a lot of people here would kind of say like, oh, she's like they kind of are bothered by it because like her whole thing is sort of playing a cartoon character of an Australian and like, you know, making it like writing all those songs that Americans like is instantly recognizable and entertaining in that way. But like, I think some people here feel like it's like her thing is reductive, you know?
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that.
That's so fast. And part of all I'll say is that it's like I've never quite been enamored with a lot of the other work she's done, but on the first EPs and that first album, there was just to me, it wasn't about the caricature sense of just there was a wry wit and totally somebody that was just came very complete with the package of like, I could just write these cuts. And now she's making an ambient album that it's funny to listen to that. And it's like, I've also listened to the Mac DeMarco.
Is she really? What the heck?
And I can say one of those ambient albums is slightly better than the other. You can guess which one. I won't tell you.
That's funny.
But you can continue.
I was just going to say, I mean, one thing that I find interesting as all part of that is like they have a thing what they call here tall poppy syndrome, which is basically the idea that it's a very, how do I say, like, on one hand, it's a very sort of the culture is very like, I feel like it's got a stronger middle class than the United States does currently, which is good. And there's a lot of like, but people like anyone who puts their neck out too far or tries to be too exceptional or like has a go at something in a way that they're convinced of, other people sort of have this feeling of like, oh, who do you think you are? Oh, you're trying to be, so you're trying to be something that you're not or whatever. And like people that try to do things earnestly, they say the tall poppy gets cut down. Right. So that's, you know, so it kind of goes like, whereas the American sort of cultural broth mindset, all this stuff is all about like individualism. I'm going to be the best and everyone's going to look at me and say they're the best. And they also aspire to be the best at whatever. And it's very kind of like the cultural winds blow in the other direction. So when somebody like Courtney Barnett or like anyone else who sort of like really puts themselves out there and does a thing that they're trying to be really good at, you often cop a lot of blowback.
Oh, really? Interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I say. Like, I don't know. And not to like, I don't know Courtney, but that's just one example, I think, of like the way, you just kind of pick up on these things that like I said, the winds blow in a different direction a little bit in the way that people feel about things. Yeah. I think especially for, you know, I found that interesting as an American coming here. Now I'm used to it. But I think
that like
the primary audience for this interview is American. They might find that interesting.
Would you say that's like the biggest kind of culture shock there? I mean, we've kind of tiptoed around different aspects of culture shock or just differences, but is there something else that you've noticed or that you kind of wanted to bring up or drop here?
I mean,
is it true they call their McDonald's macas?
Macas, yeah, definitely. I mean, we could do a whole interview on like slang. But yeah, actually, that's funny. Like in the official, advertising and branding and stuff for McDonald's, like they use macas. It's not just
really that's sick.
Like a colloquial. It is a colloquialism that's been absorbed like into the official corporate style guide.
Yeah.
Because they love that, like the shorthand and the abbreviations for everything. But yeah, I think maybe to sort of keep it within the bounds of like music and art and stuff as far as differences. I didn't realize how much the difference in like population and density what that actually meant for like the creative community. And it's a big place. The continental Australia is as big as continental United States.
Yeah.
And there are like, I don't know the exact numbers, like maybe 10% of the people, so it's basically you've got one big city in every state.
Yeah.
And other than that, there's like a lot of small country towns and a lot of dirt.
And it's just like, it's like a kind of parallel to certain American scenes that are outside of like New England, where you're just traveling from city to city and it's a lot of distance.
Yeah. I mean, but even still, I would say that the United States is more dense. There's no Chicago here in the middle of the country. There's no Kansas City. There's no Cleveland. There's no, like all these places that are like, you can drive maybe 2, 3, 4 hours and get to another city that has something going on. It's like Brisbane, you got an 8-hour drive to Sydney, you got a 10-hour drive to Melbourne.
That's crazy.
And then that's like the East Coast, and then Perth is in California.
Yeah.
I know, and there's just the outback, and then a giant.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people. I think mostly they agree. I think a lot of people would say like, no, there are towns and stuff like that, but I think as far as even the cities are generally smaller than the American cities, and that just means like for creative communities, arts and things like, it is this sort of multiplication of like the more people you have and the closer they are together, ideas come together, they spin off, they multiply, all of this. And when you just have less people and they're farther apart, I don't mean this as a criticism of anything. And I think most people here would agree that just like it's fewer in the opportunities, the places to play, all these things are fewer and farther between. And so you have to work a little harder. Your options are a little more limited. And I say that as someone who has lived in Sydney the whole time, which is known to not be the cultural city. And Melbourne is like the place for a lot more like music and arts and things like that. So I'm speaking as someone who's lived in Sydney the whole time. But that's been the experience, I think. Melbourne reportedly has a bit more going on in like sort of the DIY and alternative and underground type stuff, but
interesting.
I don't live there. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So that would be the difference. Like I just didn't realize, like I said, especially from the East Coast. I mean, the East Coast run from, New York to Philly to Baltimore to Washington to Virginia. Ohio's not that far, nor upstate New York, all that stuff. There's all kinds of stuff to do. I've done tours around that whole circuit a number of times and never had to drive more than a couple hours to get to the next gig, and it's just not the same here.
Yeah, the convenience of that East Coast metropolis or whatever, where there's just like a huge cluster of like all the big cities in like one tiny like geographic region.
And I know California's a bit more spread out, and I never spent much time like in the West.
In California is where I feel that in San Diego, which is a notoriously awful market for DIY, and there's a legitimate culture and thing playing out here. Matthew Riles, an artist that you released, he did a gig at a library here.
Did he?
Yeah, and there is like a DIY like
there's a cool like punk scene group. Yeah,
that's doing stuff like that. And you have Che Cafe, you've got also Tijuana and stuff happening in there, but there's a certain also sect where artists, even on a DIY scale that we've interviewed, will go Phoenix, LA, Big Sur.
Yeah, they'll just like skip San Diego entirely.
It's just, and I've a couple of people in chat rooms or other things I've been in have indicated it's hard for them to find venues. There's no real connections. But then also even on like a real indie circuit or for like tiered stuff, people can just skip by. So when those shows come to San Diego, it can matter. And like big stuff, we've still got our arenas. They keep building arenas for like arena rock and stuff, but I don't care. I want to see Matthew Riles at the library.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point, actually, that, you know, when you have, you know, you're living in a place that isn't on the regular agenda for a lot of people, like it matters even more when someone does show up and it's memorable and it's relatable. And Matthew Riles played at the library. Like that's, you know, like when it means a lot to people who live there when someone does come through that, like, you know, I think if we're talking about, you know, community, like that really matters to the community. And from an artist perspective, if you're trying to like build connections or build, you know, a name for yourself or whatever, it'll be more memorable. Actually, if you play like places like that, people will like know you, remember you, and like want to support you because you cared enough to come to them, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's like one of like the main things with like touring and stuff, like that I tell like my friends too. It's like if you play like a small show, it's like it still matters to like the people that were there. You know what I mean? If like you're on tour or something and it's like you feel like oh, there was like no crowd, and it's like, did you still have like 5 people there that were genuinely hyped and like bought merch? You know what I mean? I feel like that still matters. I
guess that's what I'm saying is like actually it's quality versus quantity. Like I think at the small shows, to the people that are there, they're always going to be more memorable, and
for sure
they're going to feel more invested or interested in what you're doing, and they'll remember you. And they'll like quality versus quantity, and I think that quality is like, I'm never going to get quantity in terms of being able to like quit my job or anything. So I guess I'd rather just go for quality, you know, like build relationships with people and like, you know, have a good time and care about each other, you know, like that's more important to me than, I mean, sure, it'd be great to like have a big show for some reason but like, that's not likely to happen. So let's,
and also just, like, I was thinking just from like a fan's perspective, like before I started like booking shows or even really like doing like anything related to TBD and stuff like that. Like when I was just going to small shows and stuff, like I remember like when I would see an artist that I really liked and there was like, you know, 5 people in the crowd, like, I don't know, I'd always get this sense of like, wow, dude, I like, you know, telling someone like, dude, I saw this artist and there's only like 5 people there. It was so sick. You know what I mean? Like,
and I think it is like, I don't know, like we're just wired that way for some reason that we think that's cooler. And I think there's other people that, you know, would walk into that room and say, this is lame. There's nobody here. I don't know why I'm here. Like, but I don't know what to say. Like, we're just wired differently. Different things get us excited and we want to feel that connection, and we see the value in something like that. So it's also just a difference of like, that's why we do what we do, and we value, you know, the things that we do. It's just a different view of the world, I think, than other people have, you know? Yeah.
It's gotta be.
Well, yeah, Mike, I guess moving on to like a different topic and stuff, we did kind of want to ask about like your DIY origins. Like, how did you like get involved in music in the first place, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
favorite albums, favorite, I don't know, reviews, whatever took you to like, maybe I want to make Oxtail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, to sort of go all the way back. I mean, growing up, I always loved music. I always wanted to listen to the radio. Like, I was always just kind of interested, but I was listening to Top 40 first, and then like the alternative rock station out of Philadelphia. And from there, unrelated, I started skateboarding.
Oh, sick.
And then I started like getting sucked into skate videos and being exposed to lots of music through that, but then also, a sort of whole like alternative worldview through skateboarding.
Skateboarding really does do that. You know, it's I feel like skating really is like a really good introduction into like alternative culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Shout out Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 soundtrack.
Shout out.
I mean, I was just about to say that because literally I started skateboarding because I played the Tony Hawk Pro Skater video game. Like, I am that generation. It's me. And there is a direct line from Tony Hawk, you know, being like this massively commercial ambassador for skateboarding, with video games and doing, you know, pizza roll commercials and, like being on ESPN and all this stuff. But he got a whole generation of people exposed to skateboarding first, and then there's a direct line from him making Tony Hawk Pro Skater to me being on this.
That rules.
This interview right now.
Yeah, that's it.
So I love Tony Hawk. I mean, he's just the best. And but I started skate videos, music from there, alternative culture from there, and then started listening to more of the indie bands of that time, and just kind of had this idea that like being in a band looked really cool. Like I was listening to these bands and looking at videos of them and being like, that looks fun. And I didn't have a lot of I still don't have a lot of like formal training or anything like that, but it's just the energy and the culture of it, you know? So from there, my friend in high school had a band, and I was like, hey, I don't know what to do, but I want to be in your band.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a keyboard player, so I started trying to figure out how to like play keys along to their songs, and that goes into synthesizers. And so I was doing like indie bands in college, and when I got out of college, the Tabs Out guys, because they came more from like hardcore and metal and noise, like hard noise, stuff like that, right?
It's funny. I was talking with Mike earlier this week because there was a tweet on Twitter about Duster and how Duster has so many millions of streams now. And even compared to 2 or 3 years ago, like post Capsule losing contact with the reissue, it just keeps going up. It's insane. It's becoming at this point
like a meme. Like Duster is in memes and stuff, and it just is its own like exposure that people
Duster
just
is
keep
like,
getting into.
It's like TikTok core at this point too.
It's at the point like with Godspeed where that's going to be a teenage introduction to indie at this point. Yeah. It's kind of now once somebody explained that to me, my apathy towards the music dwindled a little bit more. I was like, we did it.
You have apathy. Oh, apathy as opposed to, Did you not really care for Godspeed?
I like the 1975 EP. I like Bagline. I don't like the mainline stuff. But the importance of what it is, especially for people who then are going to jump from that to Alex G, or from Alex G to that, I got. But Mike had seen the tweet, and he's like, what did Duster do? And I'm like, Mike, do you fuck with Duster? And he revealed, I made some Duster worship back in the day. I have never heard Mike's Duster worship albums, but the idea that sometime between 1998 and the start of 905 tapes, this guy had actually heard Duster. I'll have to book a trip to Delaware next year to ask him so many questions about this, because I never realized somebody that I knew had actually heard him in real time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, true. But I mean, but from my perspective, like I'm, like indie band, like, I'm listening to Animal Collective and Wolf Parade and I don't know, that whole kind of era of things.
It was big for my brother. He had Apologies to Queen Mary, one of the cuts. God, I forget the name. And then for Reverend Green on the same mixtape in 2013. And I still got the playlist on my video iPod, and I'm like, I need to go back and quickly preserve it. But no, it's great stuff. That's
my early zone for sure. And like, the first Panda Bear album came out, and it's just like, holy crap. Like,
yeah.
But that's what I'm trying to describe here is like, that's the angle the world I was existing in.
Yeah.
And then these guys are like tattoos and like big long beards and like hardcore and noise. And I'm like, I don't know about these guys, man. They're a little bit older than me. They're like playing metal bands, like, fuck. And then I didn't know them really personally. And then I knew really it was John Pyle, an associate of the greater Tabs Out universe, also was an intimidating guy to look at, but he worked at the record store. So I was forced to talk to him and realize that he actually wasn't that scary at all. He's super nice. And so like, I kind of got to know John, and then eventually he was like, I remember he said like, yo, this new Emeralds album, does it look like I'm here? You need to check this out. I think this is your thing. And then from there,
I've got the reissue tape on the way Ghostly's delivered.
Like, yeah, this is my
I'm
thing.
So excited. I'm so excited they did a tape.
Favorite albums you asked. That's it for sure. And from there I was like, oh, I have a synthesizer. I think like that's like the second thing that like cracked my head open. It's like skateboarding and Emeralds, and
they go perfectly together.
And then I was just like, that opened up kind of the whole underground synth world to me. And then I started doing little jams, and John was like, yo, you should go to this show. You should go meet these guys. I'm like, I don't know, they're scary. And then once I met them, and they're just cracking jokes and being silly, and especially, they, to me and to a lot of other people in Delaware, like if you showed up to the gig a couple times, they'd remember you, they'd say hey, and they'd say, do you want to play the next one? And
dude, yeah,
I was just like, oh, they're not scary at all, they're super nice.
Yeah.
And so that was it. You just strike up the friendship, you play the gigs, and then
nice.
Yeah, so they're definitely kind of like the OG sort of connection for me, people that were already involved with this and kind of showed me like I was doing DIY in terms of playing in bands, releasing my own albums and records and things for bands, but in terms of like the
experimental
cassette
stuff,
experimental type stuff, they've invited a lot of people in over the years, I think, as annoying and divisive as they can be sometimes. I think they've turned a lot more people on than they have off.
What is fascinating, because it's kind of hard to, especially if like for the next group of 20 somethings that are going to get into this, they're going to need to look at the labels that Tabs Out hyped up, the labels that TMT hyped up, and realize that there's a handful of names that consistently showed up, especially anybody that did a split series release for them. And I've got the Oxtail page open right now, and I can see it's like Long Distance Poison, Matthew D. Gant, Tender Crust, Ruckle, the work of, it's not Machine Listener, but it's Matthew's work, what they've done.
Oh, with Phaeton.
Yeah, Phaeton. Mari with Maury's. And I'm trying to think if you ever had Mr. Tiny Little Hammers, any of his work that he had done.
Oh, no, actually, I didn't do anything with him. But yeah, like that, for me, things like Field Hymns, Tranquility Tapes is also one of my like super OG, like that's my favorite tape label, but Hausu, Orange Milk, all that's like
all of them were coming up at the
10
same
years
time.
ago when they were just, I mean, I still love them now, but like there was a real energy around like, I have never seen anything like this before. They're finding things and putting them together in a way that was like really fresh and really unique. And also I think, I mean, for both those labels and for Tabs Out, like it's fun, it's colorful. It's, I mean, Oxtail isn't even, I like it, of course, but I'm not trying to do that fun, colorful thing as much as like how Sue or Orange Milk is, but it was a really welcome injection into, you know, a new era of like, you know, photocopied, you know, harsh noise tapes.
Yeah.
Where it's like all really stern, stark looking stuff. And then they're like, what if every one of our album covers just looks like a video game, you know? Like,
it's funny you mentioned, because
it loosens it up, it lets some air in, and it makes it feel more approachable. And like that wasn't my style, right? Like that, I was never super into hardcore, metal, punk, any of that kind of stuff. And like, so it felt more just like open and welcoming to someone that loves music but doesn't relate to like that kind of thing. So I think it really broadened what types of people felt like welcome to get involved. And even Tabs Out, which just brought like the humor and the silliness to say like, we can take our music seriously, but we don't have to be like serious people. You know, we can, and also like we're into this super niche thing that we spend way too much time caring about. We can laugh at ourselves a little bit. Like we can do it, care about it seriously, but also be like, we're pretty deep into this thing, huh, guys? Like that's pretty funny, right?
It
can be both. You gotta laugh at yourself. You know, you gotta find it. You gotta be able to entertain yourself. And I think that
that was what invited me. It made me want to reach out to Mike. Was that I'd never seen a guy like the sense of humor. Like we're lining up, because I'd come from reading a lot of weird Twitter and a lot of like that kind of like the Deadspin or kind of Gawker, the post 2016 to 19 universe of that. And so I saw Mike's tone and what was going on at Tabs Out completely in line with that. And like it was that energy, but it was just for tapes. And it was like, this has 100 copies. Maybe you bought it. Maybe you're in on the joke. But also, though, at the same time, it was, and it's like with Max at Hasu Mountain, he had done the liner notes this year on an Emeralds reissue, the Mark McGuire double vinyl. And he basically says, like, look, that Emeralds album from 2010 is the Mecca. That's where all of the energy, because everyone in the Midwest that was doing that stuff heard it, and they said, okay, we could make our own label, or like, there's an energy here in, you know, the continental United States. Let's tap into it. And that's it.
I mean, I felt like, that's what I'm saying is I felt that energy, that wave. It was exciting. And I was like, again, I had already been doing bands and things like that, but to just be like, I got to do this. Like same with actually what I say a lot is like with skateboarding, with music, first rock style music, and then the like experimental stuff and tapes. Like if I think something looks cool from the outside and I enjoy like observing from the outside, it's not too much longer until I just say like, I want to do it too. I'm not content to, just enjoy it from the outside. I'm like, let me in, you know, it looks more fun, like actually on the inside. And it felt, like there was at least enough examples that I could look to that seemed like people that I related to that were doing it, and made me feel like I can do it too, you know? With the label, like it was, I felt like I was doing all this stuff. I was playing gigs. By then I was doing a lot of like ambient synth stuff. I was playing gigs. I was releasing one-off like home dub tapes, CDRs, whatever. I was doing things with friends, but it felt like everything was a one-off. And I just kind of had this moment where I realized like, oh, if I just give it all a name, then it becomes a body of work. And then it becomes like and then I can go to someone else and say, yes, I run a record label. And, it's like, but you just put the name and you make a Bandcamp page and you're off. Then you run a record label. But it helps build a through line through everything else, through everything that you're already doing, and make it not just like, oh, there was some gig I went to, I don't know who organized it. It was fine. And then it's like, oh, it was a gig presented by, and it helps build that continuity through everything that you're already doing and makes it feel more significant. And yeah, it is somewhat ego driven. Like, I want to feel significant. I want to feel like people recognize my name or whatever, but it's out of just kind of wanting to make a contribution, to the community and have it be recognized and feel like it's a place that if people recognize the name, they can go and feel like they connect to it, they relate to it, and they know it's got a pretty, the label has a pretty varied range of sounds on it, but it exists in a certain world. Like, roughly what you're going to get if you go there. And but I think I was just like, I'm tired of doing one-offs. I want it to be a body of work, and that's
What are some of kind of those like defining Oxtail artists or Oxtail releases over the past decade or 9 years for you, really, that have with each one cemented like, this is it?
I mean, artists wise, Rukel has to be, because he was one of the first, he was like one of the first people to send me a demo,
Wow.
And that was like, because I had just started this Bandcamp page, and even at that time, it felt like an honor for me to receive a demo. I was like, oh, somebody, whoa, who, me? And the music was great. Like, and I would listen to it and I was just like, wow, this is really like, this feels like the world of sounds that I was kind of already inspired by and all that. So I did like tape for him probably within the first year and a half of starting the label. And we've just stayed buds ever since. And I think I've done 4 releases for him, and he came to New York when I was living there, and he lived in New York for 3 months.
Wow.
And we like hung out and that's so like he's from Tokyo, right? And it's just because of this little, project that I started, and because I make music now, I've got a friend on the other side of the world that I never would have had before. Yeah. And so he came to New York, we hung out, we went to gigs, we ate dinner, like all this stuff. And then I went to Tokyo in 2019 and I played a gig there with him, and we've released records, and it's just like a real, collaborative, relationship that wouldn't have existed otherwise if it was not for this. And that's super cool, So Rukel, some of that Matthew Riles stuff is similar. Like, I played a gig in Cleveland at Matt Gallagher's place.
Oh, sick.
Oh, wow.
Matthew Riles was also on the bill. We hit it off. And then it was like talking about music and releasing things. And those have been some of the most like well-received records on the whole label. And he's got a really unique thing that he does. And again, it's like a natural, somebody you meet at a gig, you share a bill with, and then you just say like, hey, we're on each other's wavelength. Like, let's keep it going.
Yeah.
But and I think I've done 2 compilations, both of which have been really satisfying, both of which were sort of for causes, raising money for something and gathering people together to sort of support a common thing. And both of those have been, there's so much work, compilations.
For sure.
I don't recommend that anyone actually do it, but having done it, it's really satisfying. And there's some of the like kind of things I'm most proud of for the label, and like, raising money for things that you care about and kind of getting people to contribute their time and efforts for it because they care too. And those have both been really satisfying. One was to raise money for like a friend and a cause in Charlottesville, Virginia, after all that stuff happened in 2017. It was actually a guy who's a friend of mine released on the label, and he was protesting against the Unite the Right rally that was happening there. And he ended up like getting like assaulted at the rally and like had medical bills and all this stuff. So it was like to raise funds for him and some causes in Charlottesville that were opposing that. And then not exactly similarly, but then the other one we did was once I came here to Australia, it was like kind of my first like attempt to engage with like people here and all people from Australia to do a compilation that raised money for an organization that helps like Aboriginal legal causes and support them. Like,
oh, that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, to what's the word I'm thinking of? Like support for changing the fact that there are disproportionate incarceration rates for Aboriginal people and things like that. Yeah,
that's sick.
Yeah. So the compilations have been really satisfying, and so much work though.
And then I remember during the start of 2021, it's funny because Mari was one of our first interviews, and she gave us a little, live piece, and she'd also just come hot off of doing a live piece for you. So they're kind of during the lockdown era. I know you were looking into live gig or the remote kind of gigs as well and offering that platform.
Yeah, that was, during that time, I said, first order of business is every gig forever from now on should be live stream because this is great.
Yeah.
Like, even if I can't make it to the gig, I want to be able to like cook dinner and watch it or at least have the video archive and go back and watch it later. I realized that adds a whole extra layer of work to everyone involved. Like, it's not really like everyone's kind of like doesn't really want to do that anymore, but especially being over here and pretty freshly over here, it was a way for me to feel like I was still connected to things that were happening back in the United States, and the people and friends and things like that. But I think the stuff that I did, I tried to do one live, like actually live stream, which was for a Maharaja Suites release. Another artist, I would say, and a person that is sort of, there's a through line through the whole label, and like I'm a huge supporter of his work. We tried to do that live. I tried to do an interview with him like during the live stream, and somehow I literally created like a feedback loop that went from Australia to New York City to Australia again, and like it started like totally like melted down like this live stream that I was like, we'll do a live interview and you can talk about the album, and like didn't have the audio routing right, and it like it's still up there if you want to go see the disaster.
Dude.
But it felt like I could, like I said, I was missing being able to do launch gigs for people. Like, okay, I was doing a lot of that in New York. Like, I'll put out your album and I'll book the show, and I'll give you a release show as well. And I couldn't do that anymore. And it felt like now I have an opportunity to do that again, to organize something that can be some kind of moment to celebrate your release. I took that opportunity to do the online things, but then after that one, I said, okay, everyone, do a pre-recorded thing and just send it to me, and
That's what I started doing too.
I'll do a playback, and you can be in the chat and whatever. But I quit trying to do the truly live thing after
it's too hard.
Biggest feedback loop. Yeah,
it's so rough.
I was trying to do that.
Although we're down.
Sorry.
Oh no, I'm just saying we're down if people still want to send pre-recorded stuff.
Yeah,
we won't say no.
Yeah, you mean as far as like these interviews?
Yeah. So our format, I guess, used to be like, when I first started doing the remote stuff, like when COVID happened or whatever, I was trying to do it live like you were, but it was also just like going really bad. You know what I mean? So it's really hard. So what we started having people do, because we were trying to keep the format of like a performance and then an interview afterwards, you know what I mean? we just started having people send us like live sets. And so we'd air the live set and then air the interview on the radio show, like back to back. But now we can go back into the studio. So we haven't really been like asking people to send remote, I guess, performances as much for like our Zoom interviews like we're doing now. But like, I mean, if people want to do it, we'd be down. But yeah, I guess it just hasn't been happening as much.
And I had this feeling of like, I had done, I did college radio when I was in college. I worked in radio right after I got out of college professionally. And
that's sick.
I've done television, all this stuff. I was like, I know how to run like a live thing. Like I'm not coming from zero here. But it was still, I don't know. I didn't like, whereas with that stuff, you have a studio that's built by someone else, it's purpose built to make this work. And I was like, yeah, I can probably string this together on my laptop. And like, no.
I know. And it's like, all right, well, I guess my laptop couldn't power a whole radio station. I figured that out, type deal.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's the
origin story.
One question I guess I've got about Oxtail that I'm looking at here, because I've encountered a couple of the Moss archive releases from random stuff Mike sent me, and you did that Bastion Void tape in 2021, which was a name. I didn't get the tape, but I know the gang liked it. And then I'm checking on Discogs, and I'm seeing that the one copy sold for $50, one copy's available for $67. And
really,
yeah,
and I'm
curious again about them. This is, I guess, brings up represses. Has there ever been a time where you've been like, oh, we got to repress this cassette, or okay, we're doing, because I know there's a CD release of it and there's a mini disc release for a couple other ones, but
there's plenty of CDs left.
CDs are back. But also, you have to pay them. You got to want to pay for them. Paying $1 for a CD, thumbs up. But then I don't buy a lot of CDs. I always say to myself, like, I'm going to make that hyperdub purchase and spend like $100. Or like, I'm going to go to Constellation and buy the Constellation catalog, and I never do. I still really prioritize getting my stuff on cassette when it happens. But I am curious, though, because it's like with I guess to ask about the Bastion Void and seeing these prices, did you anticipate ever having like, oh, my item's like a Discogs collector item now? Has that kind of ever been something with other Oxtail releases?
I mean, I didn't know that about Bastion Void until right now. So.
Huge news.
Yeah, I guess. No, I mean, that's not really. I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to make collector's items. And I mean, in fact, like, right, I see my job and my goal with the label is to get the music out there. I want it to be available as much as possible. I want people to have it. I'm not trying to create scarcity or, like inflate the aftermarket value of something to feel good about myself or whatever. Like, so from that perspective, like, I wish I could keep everything in stock forever so that everyone could have it. But yeah, the practicality of like, of doing that, the cost of doing that is a bit kind of outside of what I'm able to do. And the thing about a repress is, I've never done it. And I guess my mind is just kind of in this place of like, I'm already like, when you run a label, you're always working ahead to my head's in the middle of next year already for like planning for releases for that. So like, it's kind of like, it's in the past a little bit. And it just, we did this thing, we did it at the time, we're proud of it. And it is what it is. Unless, I mean, I think with Joe and that Bastion Void release, like he came to me and he was really like, basically he said, I'm going to do a CD release. Like he said, like,
he put the gun on the table.
I'm going to do this. Like, do you want to collaborate on it and make it part of the Oxtail catalog, or can I just release this on CD myself? So with that, I said, oh yeah, well, like we did the first release together. And so I want to sort of be a partner, collaborator with you on the rest of the story of this, album. So let's do it. But that kind of made it a new thing. Now it was a CD, and it was like an expanded edition. It had new tracks and all this stuff. So it felt like, okay, this is a new project that we're going to put on the schedule. But just kind of going back and repressing something, just never really had the time or money or motivation in terms of like, I guess, external motivation that like the artist or the audience is asking for it in a way that makes me say like, okay, we need to do this, Yeah. But yeah, like I think that Bastion Void one, some of the Rukel stuff, one of the Matthew Riles tapes, there's a few others that people do ask for, and I just kind of say like, we did what we did.
Yeah.
Not every label is able to do that. Yeah. Like when Hotsuit Mountain did like their 10
3 people that want, the Matthew Riles tape and don't have it. It's like, does that really justify putting out money for like a whole new run?
Like a whole new batch or something. Yeah.
I don't think my label is a big enough thing that I can actually sell a second run of something. Like if the first run sells out in a year, I'm like,
that's
pretty good.
Like, yeah, sick.
Like it takes a while to get through this stuff, and we only do, usually it's 50. It's not a lot.
This also brings up another question, like, not with the runs of 50, but have you, in moving to Australia, do you utilize is there any local cassette manufacturing there? And is that to you superior than what you could get through NAC or Duplication CA 5-6 years back?
Yeah, good question. There are local manufacturers, and I have over the years done different arrangements, and now at this point sort of have a few different strategies depending on what the release is. So there's a local manufacturer in Melbourne that I would use. And I've used like, if I need it locally fast, right?
Yeah.
If I need it locally, but it can take more time, duplication.ca has like an Australian business entity. So like I'll work with them, but the tapes are made in Canada and they get like they get put on a boat to come over here. It takes like a long time to get that. But the cost is better, right? And then sometimes if it's an American artist and I know that like majority of sales and things are going to be from US, I use Cryptic Carousel, which I think they actually get manufacturing done through NAC as well. But this guy named Corey, who's the best, I've been working with him for years, so I like to support him. Use Cryptic Carousel, and then I've got a buddy, an old bandmate of mine from the indie rock days, who lives in Philly, who actually holds a lot of the stock. And then when we get orders that are from the US, he ships them out from there so that we can pay American shipping prices instead of charging $20 to get a tape manufactured in Canada, send it to Australia, and then I send it back to the US.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just ship them to Dan in Philly. He'll hold them, and he's my friend, and he will pack and ship orders for me because that's what friends are for.
Dude, that's sick. That's a good idea, actually.
So yeah, I've kind of got, do I have US distribution? I wouldn't call it that, but I have a friend.
Yeah.
That's real US distro.
Yeah.
Friendstro.
Friendstro, yeah, for sure. And I'm trying to actually build up a little bit more like record stores to stock the stuff like internationally that have good web presences.
Oh yeah.
Have you been able to get in with that one Japanese tape store that has the premier web presence or that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of them. They're all really good. I mean, Waltz is one. Tobira is one.
That was, I think
the
it's
one
Tobira.
I know. Yeah.
I talked to the guy who runs.
I've actually got 3. Yeah, the most shops that I have, there's 3 of them in Japan, which is great. And I've got a record store here in Australia. I'm in Australia. Got a friend in the US. That I can pretty much get something, But I feel like Europe, UK is like the last missing piece where I need like some kind of homie.
Yeah.
To help just kind of like offset cost of like shipping costs have gone up, manufacturing costs for tapes unfortunately have gone up. So like the inflation issue that's affecting everything else is also affecting, like, I hate, like, I've got a little bit of the you know, the Fugazi mindset in me where it's like a tape should never be more than $5, a show should never be more than $10, and it's like sorry bro, it's not 1990 anymore. Like,
yeah.
It's like, I talked about this with Doug a bit over at Hasu Mountain, where because it can also come off at times to me where like I'm lamenting like, oh, why do I have to pay? And there is like this want to go back to 2013 almost to get a tape at $5, but that's not really possible. 10 is at this point gone, or that's like you're really trying not to make a profit on it. 12 is kind of the way to go, and then you factor in the shipping and the tax, and you're paying like 16 to 17. And then you also have, and it's like I talked about it, where I've got the new Armand Hammer tape here, and this was 15 for just the O card.
It's the O card,
yeah, limited edition.
That's expensive.
500 copies, and it's gonna be one of those commodity items, and I get why they priced it at 15. It's like 22 for his other album with shipping and everything, and this was through Fat Possum, not through Backwoods self-releasing. But there's like a hype tax that gets added to some of these releases because they just know, okay, I've got people that want to buy my tape, I'll charge it at $20 to $30.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if you're a fan, if you're dedicated for that, you kind of have to just go in knowing that.
Yeah, I've got a friend now that actually he has started. He's I mean, I still skateboard, which I'm proud of, but he's like stepped in. Like he owns and operates a skate shop in New Hampshire.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah,
he's like a friend of mine back from growing up, and I caught up with him recently, and I guess this is really just I've never worked in retail, so this was a surprise to me. But he was like, I was just asking him about, you run your own business. Like, how does that work? Like, I pretend to run a business, but like, I have a day job, you know?
Yeah.
But like, you do this.
Like, this is your day job, running your business.
This is your thing. Like, I had so many questions about like, how does it work? All this stuff. And we were talking about, like essentially this, because skateboarding suffers from a bit of the same, like the price of a deck, like people start to get, you know, like the year 2000 price is like $50, and now it's maybe 75.
Are they really?
Like,
damn, that's crazy.
The cost of the thing has gone up more than $25. Like the margin is slimmer than ever, and people are really, really complaining that they have to pay $75 for this. He's like, I don't make any money on the hard goods. But the point being that he was saying, in retail, if you buy something for $10, it goes on the shelf at 20. You just double it. Mm-hmm. If you buy it, if your wholesale is 20, you do 40. And I was like, oh, like I'm adding like $1 to my tape prices or something like that. Like just to like not, I was like, I'm supposed to mark this at 20 or like at double of, and I was like, I can't do that. Like my boneheadedness like won't let me do that. But it's just the reality of what it takes to like sort of make your money back on a project in order to, again, like he's not trying to like rip anyone off, and I'm not trying to get filthy rich on tapes, but like just to like keep the lights on so that I can keep doing this in a way that continues to like, it's values first, like because I want to be a part of the community and because I want to give people a platform and share and support and all of this, but you got to have some cash to like keep that running. And it sucks, you know, that we're kind of just that money exists and that we're stuck in this, and like don't need to go down that whole rabbit hole, you know, but like this is the point at which like the creativity and the art and the community bumps up against the fact that money exists.
And in a way that is becoming more apparent. It just it like 2-3 years ago, it was not as existential as this, but now it's getting there to a point where we're you don't get as many promo tapes. you don't, or you get the promo downs and you're like, okay, I can support. And if I made more money, if I had also a real job and the space to, even if I probably wasn't going to listen to it, I'd be buying more from Bandcamp labels just to have it, to have that documentation, because it does matter. But
do you feel like this? Do you feel like people are having these conversations more now than you just said like 3 years ago? Like, do you think it's is there a trend of like people? You said existential. Like, is it not just me? Like, are more people? I
think people are thinking this in their own ways across the board.
Yeah.
We've never got like firm answers from different labels about this per se, but it's like American Dreams is charging $20 plus $7 shipping and handling for a tape I love. That comes with
$20 for a tape.
But $20 plus that $7 shipping with then tax, it's like, oh my God, I can't.
That's where I would be if I did the conventional retail practice of just double, right? That's how you get there.
Talking with Doug in Hasu Mountain and thinking about like 2 years ago when they did the Prolapse tapes and it was C120s. They used up all of NAC's C120s to do the first two parts of that 4-part series. And that was like a $15 to $20 tape that you had to, it's like, that was going to cost more, and that was still quite affordable for what they could do. Moonglyph this year went from $10 tapes to $12, just very casually with kind of weird shipping costs that also do it. Like I can see across the board, even if they aren't saying it or it's being said in a chat room or with something else, people
you can just see it.
It's finally like, even like, the cheapest one, the thing that like pushed me to getting into tapes, I remember looking at Captured Tracks website. It was $650 in 2018 through like 2021 to buy one of their tapes. It's like, you guys are losing money putting this out on this. You could just buy a Dive album for $650. Now that's like a firm 10 to 11. They knew like, oh, we got to actually price this. They're very, you don't see like the garage sales on polyvinyl or Sub Pop doing like half off on cassettes. And even they, for releases that I would want to buy from them, they just don't do a run. And I'm like, you guys are okay, cool. Like, let's just let Debbie Friday, who was on Death Bomb Arc and had cassette releases, let's just say, nope, you know, none of that. Like, or they've got a new band called Slipped. I loved their cassette release. And only one guy in America seemed to be like clued in and was buying cassettes and getting them to people. Sub Pop's got them, but they're not doing a tape. Like, people are kind of then pulling out in weird ways. I don't know. But even just on a DIY scale, it's definitely increasing, but it also was going to naturally. I don't think it should be a shock.
Well, and then I think that's where you see like people are like, what about CDs again?
Yeah.
Like,
it's not going to make, it's ultimately not going to make a difference. It's just still going to be, it's a quality product. Honestly, buy the CD because it's going to last longer. It's going to get you more longevity, but that wasn't what I was in for. And it's very then hard for me to justify. It's like, okay, what am I building my CD cart of here? I love like Revenge International, but almost all the CDs they do are the Japanese like import edition. So then I'm already paying $25 off the bat, and that includes shipping. It's like a Christmas present then that I put on my list, and I'm really happy when I get my Horse Lords and my Lucrezi Adult, and they kick ass. They're so great, but I'm just like, okay. Having to deal then with like international, because some labels still are really cheap, but you have the shipping, and that just, you have to be able to like put up the goods or to save up and to know, hey, this is a big purchase for myself.
I mean, I've found that like from the label perspective, something that's actually helping me, like I think cassette sales are down probably because prices are up. But I've been trying to fill the gap with basically digital, right? Like because for the same reason, I think people are buying more on buying more digitally on Bandcamp. And that helps keep the lights on, keeps the, that goes against the cost of manufacturing the cassette, and then still helps put towards like, can we break even and can we give the artist some money? And I know this is touchy, but I have had some level of success with streaming that again has just helped put a little more fuel in the tank to like keep things rolling. And I feel like streaming is a relatively low risk. It's a gamble. Like you just sort of gamble on like, will this show up on some playlist somewhere that will help?
Yeah.
Because that's the only way it's all playlists
for sure
to actually start seeing like whole dollars from streaming. But occasionally it's like, I've figured out how to make basically the Bandcamp cassette side of things work by itself. So it's just like a bonus if something happens with streaming, and that helps like make the whole picture make a little more sense. So digital on Bandcamp, streaming and stuff. I know there's lots of issues with that, but I've found a way to like make it work a little bit for me, but it's really just like as a sidecar, like any label that would be like primarily like, we're not going to invest in producing anything physically, we're all in on streaming, I would say like, good luck. And
again, we've talked to Ben Saraton at Earth, who put out he put out a piano tape on NNA tapes, and it was just, he just recorded that naturally. He wasn't trying to get big on streaming, but a playlist picked it up and he got a few $100 off of it. And it will probably pay a little bit of help to him when he does his next big album for Tiny Engines, when he actually does like his indie rock album because he has serious indie rock stuff, but he wasn't trying to game that system. It just happened in a way that was like, oh, cool.
You don't put the cart before the horse, right? Like what I'm doing is I'm trying to find every way that I can to support these artists and to get their music as far to as many people as I can. I'm trying to figure out a way to actually pay them money. And all of these things sort of go into that pool to try and make it happen. But I'm not saying like, I'm going to A&R my next streaming hit, my next ambient streaming hit to really, like it's, you don't go in with that as the first idea of what we've set out to do here. What we've set out to do is support the artists in the community and figure out ways that we make everything else like contribute to that. And sometimes, you can, on the best days, it's sort of feels like a little bit of a Robin Hood. Like I've taken money from Spotify and given it to, somebody who's like an ambient jammer that I think is nice, cool and smart and whatever. And like, that's how I sleep at night, So yeah. Cool.
I guess that brings us to like the last round of questioning though, Thomas, this is the important part.
Yeah. So I guess we just want to talk about like your own music a little bit too. And just what went on behind the scenes of your new record.
The development of Low Life over 9 years.
Yeah.
I think with the new record, so there was a shift in things for me, like when I came to Australia. Again, it's like a pretty pivotal kind of thing in a lot of ways. I was doing a lot of hardware-based, like synthesizer stuff in New York, and a bit more drone, a bit more noisy, because I wanted to be a hardware guy. And then I started playing. I did like one of my favorite things I've ever done was I did like a trio, improv synth trio with Matt Gant and with our other buddy Conrad, who's in what's his group now? Wait,
whose group again?
With Painted Faces and Bad Trips.
Oh, okay.
Which they do like Already Dead or release on Already Dead. And
sick.
So he's in a new trio called Bad Trips these days. But me and Matt and Conrad had this great, basically Emerald's Worship kind of like synth trio. And watching Matt work, especially, he's like all inside the laptop, like computer, Maximus P, Ableton, like wizard. And, it didn't seem lame that he was just like looking at a computer. That was always my thing. I got to have stuff. I got to look like I'm doing something. And so I moved to Australia, and one of the main things was all the power is different. All the outlets and none of my synthesizers.
That's right.
And also because then I was doing more traveling. Like I go back and forth to the US or wherever. Like I said, I went to Tokyo and I played a show, and it's just got to be more portable. So over the last few years, I've been inside the computer a lot more. It's more portable. Mm-hmm. It's more flexible. And so, I think I had been working on all of these ideas that I just had hardware limitations and things that now it's kind of like open sandbox. It doesn't cost $400 to get another filter or something. So it felt like it was a little more open. And that's my last album, In Communion, which I did on Rupal's label. That was my first go at sort of making a more digital, like still trying to make it sound very analog, but with the tools that working inside the computer will allow. So kind of method wise, this was a continuation of that. Like it's largely inside the box, but it's a little bit more like, so the strategy these days is it's kind of like collage almost, which it doesn't, it's collage that is not meant to sound like collage at all. But it's all very post produced, where I would do a jam like on the synth, either hardware or in like soft synth or whatever, just sort of do these jams or ideas or sketches, and then like take it all together and say like, I'm going to fit all these things together, and how do they sort of blend together in a way, like take all these disparate things and make them sound like they're part of the same thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's really disjointed from different sessions and different takes and things like that. But the goal is that it's kind of meant to sound seamless.
It's interesting again you bring that up, because the biggest like note over 2 listens when I was doing a bunch of library catalog work yesterday, it was a bit of oval. It definitely felt like it was lost in that post-production set of some of those late 90s oval works in a way that is like, oh, okay, this is sick. I've kind of seen also then like PJS up with some of the strategic tape reserve and other random stuff that duo's been doing with their synth stuff also coming in there. But there was, to me, I was curious about like some of the field recordings that maybe were there, the additional sounds, the usage of rain. There was a sense of you were really looking in, or kind of as a spectator to the space that you found yourself in on the release.
I think, so some of the, that's funny you say that. I think, let me try and tie all that together. I think one thing I was interested in more this time was like that additional texture and things that are kind of like, my shorthand is like, I call them like the prickly bits. And there's both with the field recordings and with synthesized sounds, like trying to get a high end that I never really worked with before, that kind of like is up here, like tickling the top of your head. So that's where I kind of came around to doing field recording and working with things there. And so some of them are like specific places or animal sounds from Australia. And it's not really meant to be about observing. It was more about just kind of finding another like sort of textural layer. But a lot of the field recordings that are there, now that you mention it, are just like from the balcony of my apartment. And it's also, a lot of this was made, it's not meant to be a lockdown album or whatever, but a lot of it was made during that time. And a lot of it is just me sort of on my balcony, just being like, looking out at the world. You know, I moved across the world. I live by myself. I spent a lot of time by myself, and just kind of looking at the world out there, being like, what am I doing, man? And there's like, you'll hear like, there's like some chatter, like people chatter. There's like down across the way, there's like the backyard of another house, and they're like all these young people having a party, and I'm like all by myself. Like this very like lonely man, like looking out on the world, being like, to be young, like. So that's
still very soothing.
Sound of young people having a fun party on the record. But I think I wasn't thinking of that at the time. I was just like, oh, this is another texture that I want to sort of like put in there, but then also a lot of it's manipulated and sort of like tried to be submerged inside the rest of the sounds and just make it sort of all sound like this sort of churning, bubbling kind of thing. And I have a few, like the low light thing is one of the things that I sort of kept coming back to in my mind was like a lava lamp. And I really like that as a sort of metaphor for something that like stays still, but also keeps constantly changing. And also like the sort of OG, like human sort of attraction to like staring at the fire, you know, like, it's just like, is it still or is it changing? You know, and there's something that's just like, we get stuck staring at it because it's like doing this thing, but it's not doing anything. And I mean, again, like a lot of people have described ambient music in a lot of ways, but that's kind of my personal like metaphor for it, that I want it to keep changing, but I want you to not notice that it's changing. And then I want you to, the listener, to sort of pick their head up and be like, how did I get here? You know, like, you know, that feeling when you're listening to something and then it sort of becomes a part of the environment, and then you sort of snap back. You're like, oh, what? Like that. And then you're saying, wait, I think I was listening to this. Was I, you know, but
the same sort
without
of
without it just being like drone or static or whatever. Like, so that's the effect I'm trying to create, but the process is like very disjointed and collage, you know? So I do everything I can to like nip and tuck the pieces together in a way that make it sound really natural, you know, or at least like cohesive, whatever. Yeah. So that's, and also like, one thing I had for this record that I never really had before was a sort of a visual idea, like a visual sort of concept to go along with it, which started with, I got this video synth software and started playing around with that, and really kind of got sucked into basically doing the same thing that I was just describing, but like visually, you know, and really sort of had this feeling that some of these images that I had created with the video synth were like a visual guide for what I wanted the record to sound like. And I think that's more where it's like the record cover has like bright greens, bright pinks, but like also black. And that's kind of like, it's got these really sharp parts to it, but it's also still like a low key thing. I don't know. And that's the like low light, like nighttime, turn the lights down, kind of thing that was in my head. So all the album art and like a lot of the other sort of visual bits, like show posters that I'm going to do. And there's like a visual identity to it, which is something I never had. And that's all come from stuff I've made with this video synth software that is also sort of like gives off that old school, like CRT monitor kind of glow vibe, you know, lights off, watching the old TV kind of thing. Yeah. So that's like the visual idea or like mood that I was kind of trying to do with it. I think, good.
What's the program called again? Your video synth program?
Oh, it's called Lumen, Lumen.
Okay, sick.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you can download like a demo version that, just to play around with. And yeah, that was part of, again, the live streams where I was like, it was actually for my last album release, and I was doing a live stream for it. And I was like, well, I got to do something visual or something interesting that will that was the thing that I was into for those live streams, was we have an opportunity to do something that is not just a live gig and not just a worse version of a live gig, right? Like if you do too much live, just like live in your bedroom or in your house or whatever, you're going to remind people that they're not at a gig.
Yeah.
And so how do we make video works that are engaged with this format that we have, that are going to be a different thing than a worse version of a gig?
Yeah. Make it like its own art form.
I was like, when I was doing it and when I was talking to other people about it, I was like, make a video piece. You don't even have to, it doesn't even have to be live. Like make a video collage, make an animation. We're playing it back like post, it's not live, and it doesn't have to even pretend to be live. And it's just going to be like a live playback of this thing that you've made. It's going to have your music with it, but we can do visual things now that we never had the opportunity to do before.
Yeah.
Or at least just didn't sort of have the format that people were engaging with. So that was my answer to that, was like, oh, I've always been interested in this video synth stuff, never had a chance. Now I've got the format in terms of like the streaming thing, and I've got the time because I'm at home. And so I played around with that, and that's what so then I had a little bit of experience with that and was thinking about it, like making a new record. That's what I came up with to sort of guide. I had this one like screenshot that was just on my desktop that wasn't meant to be anything. I was just like, oh, I like that image. Like I'll grab it. But I just kept looking at it and coming back to it and being like, I think this is the vibe. I think this is going to be thing. This captures something that I feel like I want to express in further ways, sonically and visually and all this stuff. Sick. So, I kind of got obsessed with this one like screenshot and kind of like tried to drill into that. And I think it's not the one that's on the cover. For a while, I was like, this is going to be the album cover. This is going to be it. It's a different screenshot from them, but
it just didn't come together.
No. But it's still like, I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that's the vibe. Yeah. So I think I'm really proud of it. I think for all those reasons, like the expanded tool set in the computer and the time, it's probably the longest I've spent making a record.
Yeah.
For all those things, like I do feel really proud of, like, I think it's probably my best work yet. And I'm, really excited to share it, but I also think it's kind of like, I was talking to my friend, I was like, man, I don't know what to, like, I run the label too. So I got to be the guy that writes about my own music to like write the label description.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I can't do this. Can you write it for me? I don't have any ideas. Like, I think it's my best record, but I don't have anything to say about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just what I do, but like, I think I've done it really well. And so he actually came up with a very good, like, writerly way to say that, that as you progress in your creative journey or your path or whatever, like, it's not always about reinventing yourself or pushing yourself in a whole new direction. It's about like refinement and like further engagement with your craft and your ideas and things like that. And so that's what I feel like I'm doing, is like kind of really zoning in on that thing that I've been trying to do and am continuing to try and like get to like a place that feels like really good for me. And this one feels really good. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome, dude. We love to hear that. And so where can people find it again if they're listening and they want to hear it?
Oxtail Recordings.bandcamp.com is the home for the label for this record and for all the other label stuff.
Sick.
Yeah. Oxtail Rex on Instagram, and I'm M Nigro on Instagram. That's
dope.
Yeah, is this where we do plugs?
It's always a good time. I think we still got a couple more questions, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
the other stuff I'd want to know is like, again, you kind of talked about the limitations this time in a really humorous way of not being able to immediately connect your synths and wanting to work more on the computer and in the post-process stuff. But is there any gear over, I don't know, the last 14 years that you have thrifted or been able to find that's become kind of essential to what you've done? Something that you do hope to get or, kind of play with down the line once you get the all region adapter cable? I had one of those when I traveled.
I've got most of it. Like I've had to rebuy a bunch of power supplies and stuff. I think I've mostly got everything running these days, but I did fry a mixer. I turned on my mixer and it was like, oh, that's good. I could smell it cooking itself. It was oh man. So I only one cooked piece of gear, but I mean, over the years, from the first synth I bought, and that took me through probably even the first half of my ambient era was, microKORG. I learned everything I know from the microKORG. And then from there it was Arturia Micro Brute, which was just a mono synth. That I think also recently has perhaps seen its last kind of I think it's done something that I don't know if it can come back from, but it wasn't the power this time. But so I've been very limited, mostly because I'm cheap. Lots of gear looks really cool, but I am very kind of not a gear hound that wants to
acquire all the time.
I don't have piles and piles of stuff, and it's always so I buy the affordable thing and then I just rinse it for all it's worth. So microKORG, Micro Brute, and man, the little Korg monotrons.
Never seen one of these, but I got.
They're basically toys. They're the size of your wallet.
Oh my god! Yep, now I'm seeing it.
Yep. You know what it is once you look.
This looks like a Burger King toy. No, can't believe yes. That would be so funny to get one of those. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
There's one that has it's like a little ribbon synth that just goes and there's one that has a delay, a really garbage delay circuit built into it. And it's so bad that it the delay circuit is just so noisy that you can just make it be a sort of white noise machine with a filter and delay and stuff. And that was I felt the secret sauce on a lot of records was just me sort of smearing it with the delay feedback from things.
That's sick.
And it's all, it costs $50 or something. Yeah. It's a toy. So yeah, I've always been kind of never wanted to drop huge amounts of cash on big synths or anything. And I think that's why having the soft synths and DAW type stuff is you can just load up another oscillator, you can just load up another synth, and it didn't cost me any money. So I like that. I like having stuff, and I think it's boring to watch someone play a computer, but for production it's amazing. And I think there's I felt it was some kind of shortcut or cheat or something for a long time, and like I said, literally just watching Matt Gann do what he does, I was oh, he really works this thing in a way that he's not cheating on anything. He's working. He's using the tools that he has. He's using the toolbox and doing things that you can't do on hardware. And that's what's exciting about it is where's the space where you can make something with this tool that only this tool can do, because that's, I think, where you get it doesn't matter what you're doing because it's got that uniqueness to it,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I would love to have a big fat polysynth, all the vintage stuff and all the new stuff. I mean, they're making all the manufacturers are making like amazing new big rigs that I would love to play with, but I don't have that kind of money, man.
We're starting a grant. Don't worry. We're gonna get it going. One.
I think it's also like I need limitations. Like because I don't consider myself like a really hugely competent like musician. I need the tool to sort of tell me what to do with it.
Yeah.
So it can't do, because that's the flip side of using the computer. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do. This can do anything. Whereas like I never felt that way with some of the smaller synths because they can only do like two things, and I'm like, all right, got to do one of these two things. But then your records start to sound the same because it's a give and take of like limited tools means you don't have like idea paralysis, but you also have a limited palette that you're working with. So
yeah,
you got to kind of find the balance between those two things. Yeah.
Do you follow Floating in LA at all? Like the ambient show promoter?
No, I haven't heard that.
Oh, okay.
It feels like floating.
Yeah, it feels like floating. It's just like
like floating.
Yeah, it's just like an ambient like show series in LA, but they've been doing this like series in like the vintage synth museum in LA where they basically just like have a couple artists like go in there and like practice playing their synths, and then they have a gig of them, like, so they have to like create a set on like the vintage synths, and then they have a show of them playing that
like
set.
Same day, or how long do they have to?
Yeah, I don't think it's like the same day. I feel like they maybe have like a week. I don't know exactly how long, but I have some friends like Mark Mirza, Maddie just did it. A vintage synth museum set. But yeah, I feel like you would love it, dude. You would dig that, Mike, just because like, amazing. I don't know, all the vintage synths. It's really sick. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a really cool, here in Melbourne, they call it MESS, Melbourne Electronic Synthesizer Studio or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's there's a couple of people. One of them is someone named Robin Fox.
Okay.
But it's basically just like a private synthesizer collection studio. Like it's really just a few people that kind of like have all their stuff in the same place, but you can go and like rent it like a studio and go be like, I'm going to play, the modular rig they have, or I'm going to go and play, like they have a Fairlight, they have all kinds of like old polysynths and things like that. Just like all the classic stuff that you've always wanted to try. You can like go for a day and they say you can bring your interface and your laptop, you can record everything. So like I have a bunch of people that I know here in Sydney that have like gone, to MESS and like used this particular instrument and like recorded all their takes and like made a record.
Whoa.
That says like, I've used this, it's like a study on that instrument or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Like I love the idea of making that, if you're someone that has all of these things, you can't play them all at once all the time.
Yeah.
So because it's, just making it accessible to people that might not otherwise be able to have access to that. So I've planned at least 2 trips to Melbourne to go to MESS that both got canceled by like different lockdowns.
Oh,
so I've like I've been trying to go to MESS to like see all this stuff and play with it. And then I guess, that's been a couple of years, obviously, and I haven't revisited that idea in a little while, but I would still love to go down there and see, just get my hands on some of the OG stuff, Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That'd be sick. All right. Well, Maddie, is there another question you wanted to ask her?
I think that brings us to the end here, Real Thomas.
I wanted to ask real quick, because I know you said you still skate and stuff. I don't know, what's some of like your favorite like skate brands or like any videos that came out recently? Like what have you been keeping up with in terms of like skate culture?
Do you skate?
I used to skate a lot, but I kind of like fell out of the loop. Music kind of like took over for me.
Yeah. I've gone in waves throughout the years, and I had a lot of time to skate during lockdowns and things like that. That was like the one thing I was really doing to like sort of keep sane. So I was this year of, things have kind of opened back up. I haven't been skating as much, but and what's new? Well, there's an Australian brand called Passport that is like really cool, and they've done a good job of expanding kind of internationally, and they're very trendy. I like their stuff quite a bit. New, I don't know, man. Mason Silva, like all his new stuff is just he's another, like, it's just so powerful. He's like my favorite probably contemporary skater.
He's been skating for a long time, even like when I was in it, he was relevant.
Well, he was like a little, he was like one of those little kids, that was like getting paid to skateboard at like 12 or whatever. And now he's just grown up into like a full grown, like powerful person that in a way that it's just like beautiful to watch. He's so good. I love the Spanky, like Spanky era 2 or 3, whatever we're in, where he's, he was also like a little kid. And he went through his like, phase where he was like drinking too much and like got kicked off Baker and all that. And now he's like sober, and he's changed the way he skates entirely. And like that's really creative and really artful. And just again, to see someone that's like grown and matured into like an adult, that sort of, you can tell he now has like an adult outlook on skateboarding. That's not just about like throwing yourself down the biggest set of stairs, it's creative. It's kind of flowy, and
Did you see the video on Spanky's Instagram of him skating with Tim Robinson from I Think You Should Leave?
Oh yeah, he's like boys with Tim Robinson and like skates.
Goodness.
Wow. Dude, Tim Robinson. That's a good piece to the arc as well. Yeah.
Dude, Tim Robinson is actually like
there's a lot of that, man. Like skate photographer, like you'll be like, what's this on my Instagram of like these skateboarders like hanging out with Animal Collective, or like
I know it's crazy.
I guess, and you guys live in California, but like I guess there's this whole thing of like, if you're in a creative field and like you're big enough to like be doing the LA thing, like I guess people start hanging out with each other. Like
you just meet people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All those artists that are just hanging out.
I always thought it was
I'm not shocked though.
I always thought it was the craziest thing how like Spike Jonze was like directing like the girl videos and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's, where was I? I think I was, because I listened to like the podcasts, like the Bunt I love, which is like a Canadian skate podcast, which is great. And then Nine Club is like the
Nine
big
Club's
one.
Good. That one's sick. How they have like all the old pros like back on the show to like see what they're up to. Yeah, that one's sick. I listen to it every now and then.
So it must have been one of the Nine Clubs, because like they're plugged in with Girl Skateboards and Chocolate Skateboards, which Spike Jonze worked with.
Yeah.
So it must have been on some Nine Club or series of Nine Clubs, just like talking about like lots of stories about working with Spike and like all the kind of unhinged stuff that he would come up with. And actually, I think like going the other way, like the idea that with skateboarding, you don't you just go, like you don't get a film permit. You just
do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that, Spike Jonze would take that to like his other film shoots and whatever.
Oh, really? That's sick.
We'll shoot some, like we need to get this scene of like somebody walking, like even just normal stuff, like guys walking down the street, or like a car driving scene, and people are like, we don't have we don't have the permit for this. We need to, we don't have a second hand on the camera or whatever. Yeah. And he's like, no, we just do it. We don't, we just go and we do it. And like, that's the skateboard like ethos and mindset.
For sure. Yeah.
Stuff. I think it jives in with like DIY culture as well. Like, anything's a venue if you like start making noise. Yeah. Like
definitely. Yeah.
It's like we don't need a promoter. We just do it. And then so that I think there's a lot of like outlook, ethos, all that stuff that crosses between skateboarding and and sort of the DIY music arts culture for sure. And that's something that I feel good about and relate to, and get frustrated when people try to like over engineer things, you know. Like,
yeah,
no,
definitely.
you just do it. Yeah. So yeah, skateboarding, love it, man.
Dude, super fun. Actually, it was pretty crazy. We just had a show. Like, I do a lot of like rock shows and stuff too, along with like, you know, the experimental stuff. But like, we just had a show at Mike Anderson's skate shop in Ventura.
No way.
Yeah, from Crooked. Yeah, he just owns a skate shop in Ventura, and yeah, it's super sick. He like let us have a show there one day. So, and I was like, damn, this is like crazy. Like, yeah, we're just like talking to like Mike Anderson. We're just having a show at his shop. You know what I mean? Like a legend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great. There's a few pros around Sydney, like Chima Ferguson lives here.
Oh, dude, Chima was so sick back in the day. Yeah, dude, I used to love his skating. Yeah.
He did like a couple of parts that came out maybe 2 years ago that were all like, he was living in Sydney and couldn't leave during lockdowns, and the streets are like, a lot of crazy skateboarding came out of the era when like streets were empty.
Oh, I could totally see that for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of cars, and there weren't a lot of like all that stuff. And people just had an opportunity to go do something that is usually like, you know, in the middle of Times Square or like whatever that you would normally like never be able to access. And like, just streets were empty and people were like, we can do this now. Like, let's go, you know?
Yeah.
So he had some crazy parts that were all in Sydney. And then like for the next, like that came out, I was like, this is insane. Also, I know where all of those places are. Like, then you just go walk around the city and be like, there it is. Like, holy crap. Like that skate tourism of like going to a different city and then trying to find the stair set.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like,
it's crazy.
You're like, you see it in the video. You're like, I know this is in Miami. Like, I don't know anything about Miami, but like, I know one. Like, this is in Houston. Like this
spider, it's the skater.
This weird sidewalk bump is in Houston. Like,
no, I feel that. It's also interesting too. Like, I'll be driving around LA with like my friends and stuff, and I'll just see a spot. And I'll be like, oh, dude, like this person did this trick here, like back in the day, like this spot's so famous. And they're just like, just a school. You know what I mean?
No, I love it. I love it. I love
sample.
it.
Yeah, they don't even care. Yeah. You know, they're like, just looks like a school to me. And I'm like, no, but like that like stair set to bank, you know what I mean? Like that's like
they're like, this one has curves.
Yeah.
Famous curves.
Or like, it's funny, like I live across the street from this like middle school, and Eric Costin has like skated it in Mouse. Like Mike Mo has a part or a trick there and Fully Flared, and it's like, this spot's in videos.
What's the school? You know? I know the names. I've never been to LA. Like I know the names of all these places, you know? Like
it's important road. It's interesting. It's like important road mapping because I'm thinking right now, because I'm not as deep into the skate stuff, but it's like identifying a sample in a hip hop cut. It's like, oh, there it is. That's it. You're getting the sonic roadmap there, but now it's the skate, the landmarks. And it's like, again, living in San Diego, I've seen local documentaries because the PBS affiliate will play them of 80s and 90s skate culture coming in. You see those high schools, and that is iconic.
Yeah.
That architecture, that's like those top of the line primo, one of a kind that, you know, in California, they were developing these schools that were completely open. And then inserting the bumps and all the stuff. And it's like, it was just unique. That was the culture of this architecture that totally welcomed it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point about how it is like, has to do with, it's a unique sort of shared history of like what the architecture and the, you know, what people were building and designing for at the time was happening. And then like how the, you know, skateboarders like responded to it. And I think it's super interesting to like, you know, you sort of see the world with like another lens on your face when you're like looking at stuff that is just like random urban architecture. And you're like, and it's also like this mindset of like, how can I make this work? Like I see something here. It looks like not just you're identifying things that look good, but you're also trying to figure out like, how do I make this work?
Yeah.
You know,
that's also why skating is
trying to shoehorn it in. You're like, I could do that, or maybe I could cut that angle, or it's it's fun. It's like it's a puzzle, Like,
yeah, that's why skating is like so cool, because it's like you see like what spots, like, and people aren't always even skating like legendary spots. It's like some of the sickest tricks are on spots that they just find, and they're like they do some crazy trick, and it's like, wow, that's literally like an art form of like being able to like identify something and be like, okay, I can do this here. You know what I mean? Like I can use this to like my advantage in that way. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. There was just, I forget the name of who it was. There was somebody that just that's like an ambient synth, musician. And he just did like a whole new soundtrack, like re-soundtracked, like Toy Machine's like Welcome to Hell.
Oh, really? That's sick. What the
like
hell?
With ambient music or something. Like he did his own soundtrack to it, which is pretty sick.
Dude, can you send me that? I want to watch that. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, I can send you that. Yeah,
dude, that's so sick. I didn't know that was a thing.
Wait, now I don't know if it's got to be with the video. There must be on YouTube where he like put them together or something.
Dude, that's wild.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyways, skating, dude. We could go down a huge rabbit hole with this, but dude, that's sick that you skate. I love that like you're still skating and whatnot.
Still at it. Yeah. Every day I'm like, I don't know, maybe I don't know how much longer this is gonna last.
Yeah. But, nowadays I fall and it hurts really bad. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not even that old, but like anyways, yeah. I just can't I can barely do tricks anymore. It's kind of discouraging. You know what I mean? Like I used to be able to do all these tricks, and now it's like I try and I'm just like, I'm not that good anymore. Like,
That's it sounds a little corny, but like it's a kind of loss. Like I used to be able to do this and now I cannot.
Dude, it's a bummer. And, like I remember in college, like one of my Oh, sorry. Yeah. Like one of my friends like invited me to skate one day in college, and I was like, yeah, dude, I'm down. I have my board with me, and like we went and skated. And I was like, dude, I can barely kickflip. This is like embarrassing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And then, I mean, I went through so much of that. Like I was skating a lot in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But still always like comparing myself to when I was 16, and being like, if that was like the peak of when I was able to do the most number of things on a skateboard or whatever, it's like, it's comparing yourself to yourself and being like, oh, I used to be able to do this. I should be able to do this. And like, that's very frustrating.
It is. Yeah.
It feels nice. And like these days, I'm like trying to just sort of keep up with, to lose as few things as possible. Like I'm done even trying to like learn. But that's kind of what I was talking about with like Spanky is like, you just start seeing things differently and you say like, you kind of develop a new bag of tricks or a new style to sort of fit, the way your brain and your body move these days. Like in pretty much no other part of my life do I say like, I aspire to be like I was when I was 16, like, and so you're a different person. You've like aged, you've matured, you've grown, like, I try and bring the same mindset to skateboarding and not just be like, I need to be 16 again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyways, I guess that brings us towards the end of the show here.
Awesome.
Yeah, Mike, thanks again, dude. And again, like where can people keep up with all things Oxtail?
Yeah. Oxtail Recordings on Bandcamp, Oxtail Rex on Instagram and Twitter. Yeah. We've got a newsletter you can sign up for on Bandcamp.
Cool.
Yeah. And my, I'm on M Nigro on Instagram is probably the best way. So
cool. All right. Well, we have one more question here. It's kind of the biggest one of the show. We got to ask everybody the question. Maddie, do you want to take it?
Thomas, you got it this time.
All right, dude. So I never do them as elaborate as Maddie, but anyways, so a rat is going to
jump. I know. I've been waiting the whole time for this. I'm a fan of the show, so I'm ready.
We love this. We love our fans.
So a rat is going to jump into your mouth. Do you want this rat to jump into your mouth head first or butt first, and why?
I guess I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and no, I think I'm going to go head first. It just seems more streamlined. Like, I guess my assumption is that I'm not going to spit it out. Like, it's going down. So it just like seems more aerodynamic. It's narrower at the front, and like if it has to go down, it seems like you're doing it the wrong way if it goes butt first. That's what I'm thinking.
That's a great answer. A solid answer.
Neither one sounds super pleasant, to be honest. What's the origin of that question?
Oh, Maddie.
The question comes from a New York City-based podcast, What a Time to Be Alive. And I listened to the first, like, when I cared about podcasts before, I said, nope, drop that. It's all on music now. Because I thought those guys were hysterical, and they still are, but they would bring on their guests, and they would ask the guest that question as like an introduction thing. So that had been in my mind in 2019, all through like 2017 into a little bit of 2018, and like just stayed on my mind because it's such a wild non sequitur, just off the wall thing to give. And I was like, okay, Thomas, you got to like start asking. Yeah. Every time I think about it, I think of one of the Simpsons episode on where Bart is enrolled in a Catholic school because he's framed for like bringing all these rats to the medieval festival at Springfield Elementary, and a rat jumps in his mouth and it lands head first. So that image, those things have always been.
Oh, dude, that's so funny. I never heard the Simpsons.
I don't know that. I got to go back and find that episode. That's
That's a good one. I forget. It's one of the better early 2000s ones.
Yeah, dude. Damn, Maddie, I've never heard that tidbit part of the rat story. That's awesome.
There you go.
We learned something new today. That's sick.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, dude.
Yeah,
well,
thank you both so much. Really appreciate it. It's great.
Yeah,
spending
thanks.
some real significant time talking to you after the kind of tangential interactions for so long. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks again, Mike. Everybody that's listening, thanks so much for tuning into TBD on KCSB FM 91.9 every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. and Net Radio every Wednesday at 7. This has been Mike Nigro. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.